In this bass lesson, you're going to learn 5 more beginner bass lines that are guaranteed to impress. Now, the easy bass riffs in this video are bass lines that almost every bassist should know, and the best part is they're super easy to get started with. Hi, I'm Luke from Become a Bassist, and welcome to this sequel video, and it's a sequel to a lesson I put out last year all about beginner bass lines. There were a ton of people who wanted to see me cover other bass lines, so 1 year later, here we are. We're going to learn some more bass lines that are instantly recognizable, which means you can play them and get people excited about your playing right off the bat. Learn these lines, and you'll always have something in your arsenal when someone says that dreaded phrase, "Play something for me." So, let's jump in. The bass line that was most requested by far on last year's video was Gorilla's Feel Good Inc. Great bass line. The whole thing will sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4. Just like that. Simple enough, right? Now, in the actual recording, the bass is tuned down a half step, but just to keep things simple, we're going to stay in standard tuning. If you do want to practice with the recording, but don't want to detune your bass, I've actually made a loop of the song and put it into standard tuning for you. You can find it by clicking the first link in the description of this video. Also, if you want to get as close to the recording sound as well, you might want to use a pick. Yeah? It's not essential, but it does make it sound much more like the recording. So we're starting with a nice solid hit on our open E string. Then we get this nice little run. Yeah, open string, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, E, F sharp, and G right there. Then we move over to the A string, and on the offbeats, slam the 3rd fret, and then the 2nd fret, C and B right there. And then we let that B kind of hang in the air, let it ring nice and long. Yeah, now the second part of the phrase has an almost identical rhythm, but the notes are just a little bit different. We start on the open A string, nice big strong hit there, and then we get this. Yeah, we get the open string, 3rd fret, then 2nd fret. It's kind of like the first part of the phrase, but we're on the A string playing an open 3-2 rather than an open 2-3. Yeah, so we get... Then we swap back to the E string, play the 3rd fret, and then the open E string. Now, instead of letting that open E string ring through, we're just going to cut it nice and short. Just like that. Now, that's basically it, but there is one last little detail. The bass line starts with exactly what we just played. 3, 4. Yeah? And then it does almost the exact same thing again. The only difference the second time is that very last note, that open E. The second time we play the phrase, we're not going to stop at the last open E, we're actually going to slide up to the 12th fret on the E string, hang out there for just a split second, and then do a really subtle slide down there. Yeah, so the second part of the phrase sounds like this. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we get that. Nice little slide up, nice little slide down. See how it's changing up every 2 times through? That's basically it, at least for the really cool part of the song at least. By the way, if I'm blazing through these just a little bit fast, it's all good. You can download all the tabs and notation for all these bass lines by clicking the first link in the description of this video or by clicking this card right up here in the top right. Just fill out the form on that page. I'll send the tabs and notation straight to you. That way you can work on these at your own pace and have the tabs and notation to guide you through. But let's move on to our next bass line right now though. The next bass line is ridiculously easy, and it got requested a fair bit too. It's John Deacon's bass line on Queen and David Bowie's Under Pressure. Although, a lot of people might know it maybe a bit better from Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby. Now the part that everyone knows and everyone talks about when they talk about this bass line sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hardly anything to it, right? We're just using the 12th frets on the D and the A strings, our 2 middle strings, at least if you're on a 4-string bass. Now we get 6 notes total on the D and then just 1 on the A. I like to think of it in groups of 3. So 3 notes that go by a bit slower, then 3 quick ones before we go to the A. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, A. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, A. Yeah? Now in the recording, again, actually John Deacon uses a pick, so it sounds more like. But once again, if you don't have one or just don't want to use one, it's all good. It's still going to sound like this song. Now there is actually more to this whole bass line, but if someone's hassling you to play something and you play just those two notes like that, then you're pretty much golden. Next we have Fleetwood Mac's The Chain. Now this song ranks pretty high on the epic scale, and the bass line is a big part of that. Now the most iconic part of the bass line actually happens midway through the song, kind of the second half, almost like a breakdown, and it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In slow motion we've got 2, 3. Just like that. We're starting on the open A string, letting it ring, and then we get this little mini walk up to the second and third frets on our A string, our B and C on the A string, and then we walk straight back down to the A. Although on the way back down this way, we're actually going to go past the A and down to the third fret on our G string right here. 2, 3. We don't stop there though, we change direction again, go back up to the open A string, then up to the second fret again, the B right here, before finally ending on the open E string. So slowly, it looks like this. 2, 3. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Just like that. We get a lot of movement in this one, lots of kind of changes in direction, but it's really, really memorable. Up to speed, 2, 3. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Now when the rest of the band comes in the recording, the bass line does get a little bit more active, especially if you listen to the live versions of Fleetwood Mac play this, but at the core, that's it. Super, super simple. Our next line comes from Green Day's Mike Dirnt and his bass line for the song Longview. This was another one that people wanted to see pretty badly, and it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. This one again, in the recording, the bass is tuned down a half step. But just like Feel Good Inc., there's a standard tuning version underneath this video for you. Makes it super easy, don't have to detune your bass at all. Now as far as how to play it, you'll do this. We're starting on the A string, 7th fret right there. Now that's an E if you want to talk in terms of notes, and our first little phrase goes like this. We're playing 7th fret on the A, then up to the 9th fret on the D, and then 7th and 6th fret on the D. The notes are E, B, A, and G sharp. That's the first little part. Now from here, we're going to play the E again, but really quickly before we slide down to the 5th fret and do something similar. We get this. Yeah? 5th, so we start with the 5th fret on the A string, 7th and 6th fret on the D, before going back down to the 5th fret on the A string, and then we get this fancy little flourish. We play the 5th fret on the A string, and then the 4th fret on the D string, before finally quickly sliding back up to that 7th fret on the A string. Just like that. So far, just like that, yeah? Now the next part is exactly the same as the first part of the phrase. 7th on the A, 9th, 7th and 6th on the D, and then we get probably the coolest part of this line. We're going to play on the G string the 9th, 7th, 6th and 7th fret, but with every note we're going to play an open D string underneath it. Just like that. How sweet is this? You don't see bass players playing multiple notes at once a lot, but this is a really cool example. So the whole thing slow sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. up to speed. Just like that. Now again, this is one where on the recording there's actually a pick that gets used. Makes that little flourish on the D and G strings a little bit easier rather than having to pluck with 2 fingers. And for this song, it actually makes a lot of sense because it's nice and raw, nice and gritty, very, very Green Day. Alright, the last one is one of the most recognizable bass lines maybe ever. It's Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. Now I'm going to show you 2 versions, the simplified one and one that's maybe a little bit closer to the original recording. Now the simplified version sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you're just using the 4 notes, 2nd and 4th frets on both your D and A strings. So 2nd fret on the A and the D, 4th fret on the A and the D. You're starting at the 4th fret on your D string, then going to the 4th of your A, then 2nd fret of your D string, then back up to the 4th. That's the first half of the phrase. Yeah, so F sharp, C, E, F sharp. Then you play your 2nd fret on the D string, then 4th of your A string, then 2nd of your A string, before finishing on the 4th fret of the A string. Yeah, so the second half sounds like this. Yeah, the actual notes, once again, F sharp, C sharp, E, F sharp, E, C sharp, B, C sharp. Now this is relatively simple to get together, but the real struggle is in doing it for the whole song. If you haven't got the strength and the stamina, your hand can really be burning before you get to the pre-chorus and you can change what you're doing. Just like that. So that's the simplified version, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing it that way. I must have played this song hundreds of times, and if I ever use the simplified version, I've never once had someone notice or even care. So if you don't think you can manage the trickier version, it's totally fine. But if you want to get a little bit closer to the sound of the recording, the thing to do is to add a low F sharp, the 2nd fret on your E string down here, every time you play that high F sharp, the 4th fret on your D string. Now that is going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gives it a bit of a kick, right? A bit more power. Now different people get that low F sharp in kind of different ways, but the way I use is just use my thumb to play the low F sharp and just use my kind of same old regular technique in my right hand. Just kind of like that. Now other people switch it up to be more this kind of technique. Oh, I'm not used to that. Where it's more kind of finger picking. And that can work really well as well. Whatever works for you and whatever works for the song is all good. Like I said before, if you want all the tabs and the notation for all these songs so you can work on them for yourself and at your own pace, then click the first link in the description, fill out the form on that page and I'll send them all right to your inbox. Also, if you haven't checked it out yet, make sure and watch the original 5 beginner bass lines video as well. I'll chuck another link in the description as well as links to all the songs we went through in this beginner bass lesson. To recap though, you learned 5 more beginner bass lines that every bassist should know. We checked out Feel Good Inc. from Gorillaz, Under Pressure / Ice Ice Baby, Fleetwood Mac's The Chain, Green Day's Longview, and finally 2 different variations on Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. Thanks so much for checking out the video. I really appreciate it. I'm Luke from Become a Bassist, and hopefully I'll see you in another video soon. Happy playing.